What is up, everybody? I'm Johnny Blacklight, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about Dogman. One of my favorite cryptids, especially lately. I don't know, man, just something about it. The fear eater aspect, the look of it, very werewolf-like. I love how a lot of the stories line up. A lot of the descriptions are very similar you hear online. Very interesting, very spooky. But yeah, man, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to creepy stories from is Belief Hole Podcast. So we're going to be checking out a clip from them today. That is them reacting to a clip from, I believe it's Dogman Encounters podcast with Vic Cundiff, I believe. They'll explain before in the clip. This story in particular, man, you'll hear the host here from Belief Hole say it's a clip that got him into it. But for me, I was already a little into it, but this clip really solidified my interest in Dogman. It just made me want to dive even deeper into the rabbit hole and check out more stories and whatnot. So let's get right into it, man. Check it out.
Now, this first experience that I want to recount here, that we'll play for you, actually, this is a clip. This clip is the first story I ever heard that got me interested in this Dogman encounter phenomena. This goes back to episode 9. We played this clip a little longer, and we talked about it more in length. If you guys want to hear that, join the expansion. It's in the archive season 1. And this full encounter, I'll recommend you go listen to. It's maybe a couple hours long, and it's all really good to listen to.
The full encounter is a couple hours long?
The full original recording, the interview.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I edited this down like crazy to get to kind of the
So
meat
there's
of it.
way more to it than this part?
I mean, it's the whole setup. He's very detailed in his description.
What else could have taken that long?
He talks about the region where this happens. He talks about the muscle car that he's driving at the time.
Yeah.
It provides a lot of context that I think is
But
really
it
interesting.
just builds up to that one sighting?
Yeah. And then there's follow-up, like how this affected you afterwards, years later, why he didn't tell the story for 35 years.
I gotcha.
Anyways, so you guys can go check out. This originally comes from Dogman Encounters, the channel that 6-7 years ago, whenever it was, I would listen to going to bed every night once I found the first story.
Vic Cundiff?
Vic Cundiff, yeah. Dogman Encounters. I'm sure most of you out there have heard of it. But this was an early story from years ago, and when I heard it, it definitely hooked me. And I want to present it today because it is at least a small clip of it that we've edited down for time. But go listen to the original. We'll link it in the show notes. The full interview is really, really good. I just love this guy because he sounds so genuine, so authentic, and so traumatized. 35 years later, this guy didn't tell his wife, his family. No one knew about it, even to the time of this recording when he was interviewed in Dogman Encounters. He had never told the story in 35 years because, well, one, who's going to believe you? And two, the terror that he had lived with. He wouldn't go down that road. And I think he still lives in the area, but it affected him so badly. And he'd never watched horror movies growing up, was never into that stuff.
You didn't watch Dog Soldiers?
Didn't watch Dog Soldiers.
Great film.
So there's all these details in the full interview that we don't have time for here, so go check it out. But for the setup of this story, the area where this takes place is called Wagner Hollow Road. It runs about 20 to 25 miles long. It begins in southwest Virginia and passes through Tennessee. But this occurrence happened on the Virginia side of Wagner Hollow Road. In this area, it's like a kind of a narrow valley, and it's surrounded by fields, farm fields on both sides that can run for several hundred yards, these fields. So you got a good view in some areas where it's more of a valley and less like a deep holler, where you can, on a bright moonlit night like tonight, the night of the story, you can see clear in the field. And that was his visibility. He could see things coming. He saw this thing coming while he was driving down the road. And
It was horrifying.
there's a key thing to this story, just like all these stories that have kernels of truth in it. There isn't like, there's a werewolf coming at me. I see something. My brain can't make out what it is. Is that a bear? It's not a bear. Is that a man? A man can't run 60 miles an hour. So your brain's trying to make out what this is, and that's part of the horror of it, because it just doesn't make sense in your mind. And it isn't until a few seconds in close contact when you figure out what it is.
30 miles an hour.
Last thing I wanted to mention about this area is it's heavily wooded from this area, from the Cumberland Gap into Kentucky. I don't know the area, so I'm not exactly what that means, but essentially many, many, many miles of just wooded terrain like this. Plenty of places for things to hide. And then you have these spotted kind of farm fields. So just an interesting environment where you might see something pop in and out. I'd like to go here, but at the same time, after hearing a story, I might not.
Yeah, it's important to mention here, I think, is just the fact that the recent episode we were talking about, we were kind of making fun of Jeremy a little bit because he said if he were to hope to see something paranormal, it would be a Dogman.
Right.
He said after revisiting the story that initially got him into this, he remembered how terrifying a real experience.
I did.
For real.
Yeah, I heard his voice and I was like, I forgot how traumatizing this actually is for people because I haven't listened to these stories in a while. But let's play this clip. And
That's
you
the
guys
thing
can tell
about it.
us
It's
what
what's
you
so
think.
creepy.
And, this thing keeps drawing closer and closer to me, and I just can't make out what this thing is. It don't look like anything that I've ever seen. It gets close to the barbed wire fence on the right-hand side, and I think, well, maybe it's going to slow down, or maybe it'll veer off where it won't run into that barbed wire, and it'll turn aside out of my way. But it didn't do that. instead of doing that, this thing sped up. And instead of turning aside, it jumped right over the fence. And it landed on my side of the fence, in between the ditch line and the fence. And then it took another bound. And the next thing I know, this thing is out in the road. I mean, it's right next to my vehicle. And it scared me so bad that I just jerked the wheel to the left and went over as far as I dared into the left-hand lane. And this thing, it started running right along beside of me. I had cherry bomb mufflers on that car, and if you know what they're like, they're loud. But yet, at the same time, I could hear the nails of this thing, the toenails, click, 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 clacking on the road as it ran along beside me. And I could see it good now. I really didn't want to look at its face. I really didn't want to see its face. But I couldn't help it. It's just like I couldn't help myself. I had to. And, I mean, this thing was tall. It had to be at least 7 feet tall. It towered over the top of my car. And it was running along beside me. It couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 feet off the passenger side of my car. Just, I mean, right even with my passenger side window. I could see it just as clear as day. And I know that if it wanted to, this thing could have reached right in my car window and right over to the driver's side from the passenger side, and this thing could have grabbed me, and it could have drugged me right out of the car. If it wanted to, it could have just ripped my head off, or it could have leaned in my car window, and it could have bit my head off. I don't know. I know it could have, and I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't dare because I was in this steep curve, and I knew that if I hit the gas, this car probably wasn't going to be able to handle the curve, and it was going to run off in the ditch, and I was going to wreck. And I was going to be there alone with this thing, and I was going to be at its mercy. And for a little while, it just ran along beside me and just didn't pay me any attention. But that didn't last. Just slowly, seemed like it took forever, but just slowly, it started to turn its head, and it looked at me. I couldn't help it. I looked full in its eyes. I wish that I hadn't. I wish I'd never seen it. I wish I could erase the picture of what I saw from my mind, but I can't. This thing had great big black eyes. All I could see was black, and then they just looked as black to me as a bottomless pit. They just seemed soulless to me, and I just had a sense of evil that came over me. And this thing, when it looked at me, it was like that it could look through me and look to my very soul. And like I said, I just felt like I had been touched by evil. I don't know how else to explain it. And there was such a fear. And I wanted to scream or to holler out or do something, but it just seemed like my mouth just dried up like cotton, and there wasn't a sound that would come out. And I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to get away from this thing, but I couldn't because I was afraid I was going to wreck. And then it came closer, and it leaned down. It leaned in, and mind you, this thing is running beside my car the whole time. And it stuck its head in my window, and it grabbed hold of my door with its right hand. And that, I don't know how to describe it as other than that. It was a hand. This thing had huge hands, and it had long black nails, maybe about 3 inches long, 2 or 3 inches long, long black thick nails. And this thing put its right hand on my door, and I could hear it. It put its left hand on my doorknob, and it was jerking at my door, and it was jiggling my door handle. But this thing was leaning in my window, and it was looking right at me. And it seemed like that it curled its lips back, and I know it snarled at me, but I don't really remember hearing it. All I could hear was the sound of my engine and the sound of its toenails as it ran along beside my vehicle, going clack, 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 clack on the pavement. And it breathed on me. Seemed like I could smell blood and maybe decaying flesh as it breathed on me. It was horrible. And, I thought I was dead. I thought this was the end of me. I thought I was a goner. I thought I was a dead man for sure. And just about that time, the curve ended, and I came into a straightaway. And I just hit the gas and pushed it to the floor. And I took out of there. I took my eyes off of it, and I looked ahead. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw it lose a grip on my car door, and I saw its smells rake across the top of my door. And its head disappeared from my window. And as I drove away from it, as I pulled away from it, I looked in my rearview mirror, and I could see it getting smaller and smaller as it began to slow down. And the last thing I remember, the last thing that I saw, this thing veered off to the right again and jumped over the fence and disappeared into that field. I've never been so scared in all of my life. I mean, it was just absolutely horrifying.
Yikes.
There's something about the sound of his voice.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The emotion.
Definitely. That's what gets me with this story is the sound of his voice and the emotion in it. Man, it's just so like moving. It sounds so convincing. You know what I mean? Either he really saw something that he really thinks is that, or he's a really good actor. You know what I mean? Give this guy the Academy Award or whatever, dude, because that's a creepy story, man. It's just bone chilling. The way he tells it with detail, just the emotion that's there is just so creepy. I mean, just imagine that, something chasing after you like that, this giant wolf-like creature just reaching into your car, the glowing eyes and the smell and just the fear. Just imagine just the fear that something like that could bring. And that's the interesting thing about these stories is a lot of them, it seems like these creatures can get you if they wanted to, but they just want to scare you. And it seems like they feed off of that adrenaline or that just pure fear, just pure human fear. Maybe they're from some sort of dimension and they feed off of stuff like that or something. I don't know, man. Maybe that's why we can't find them. Because that's what it seems like to me, man. Like maybe it's some sort of interdimensional being or something like that. The description of its hand is very creepy to me. Just a long, claw-like actual hand and not like a paw. And that's what's always very interesting to me with these descriptions of these things. Just like a mouthful of teeth, just like too many teeth for its mouth. Just otherworldly feeling. But yeah, like I said, I was looking into a little bit of Dogman stuff, was very interested in it, and then I heard this story, man, and that just sent it home for me, man. And I think right now, at least right now, Dogman's probably my favorite cryptid. What do you think, man? What do you think of this story? Do you think this guy's telling the truth? Do you believe him? Do you believe in Dogman? Have you had an encounter? Do you know anyone that's had an encounter? What do you think about it, man? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll get into the convo. But yeah, man, I also highly recommend Belief Hole Podcast. One of my favorites, man. It's three brothers, super wholesome, but also super creepy. They find a bunch of creepy stories. They have a lot of listeners' submission stories, themed episodes. Really cool stuff. Solid stuff, man. Check them out. But yeah, man, I think that's going to do it for the video. I'm Johnny Blacklight. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you next time.